Everyone, welcome to a 2-for-1 here that we're doing. I'm up in Estes Park with my friend Adam Dudek, pastor up here. Been pastor for how many years, Adam?
Well, I've been here for going on 6 years and then 8 years at a different location.
And this is an E-Free Church, right?
E-Free Church.
E-Free
That's
Church.
Right.
And we met each other on, I don't know, email or something like that.
Yeah, like Facebook Messenger. I noticed you were talking about giants and the garden. And I was preaching through Matthew, and you were also talking about the geography of Christ and the transfiguration. And so as a creepy Facebook stalker, I messaged you, and I had heard you a couple of times, I think, on the Blurry Creatures podcast.
Yeah.
But I was like, Doug is right down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we got to hang out.
So you are one of the only people in Colorado that would have any sort of even Reformed-ish beliefs with the blurry stuff together.
Correct.
So it's pretty cool. So Adam has his own podcast up here that he does really for his church that's called Valley Run. And, I'm doing the Reformed Fringe podcast. And so we decided to do kind of a 2-for-1. We'll be putting this out probably on both platforms. So we want to welcome you to that. As far as the Fringe side of this goes, just want to have you all remember that we have a platform that we have this kind of a safe platform for people that can talk about the Reformed Fringe weirdness. And head over to reformedfringe.com if that's something that you're interested in. We have some, I think probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 episodes planned for you.
Yep.
We're just going to film them all at once here on this super windy Monday up in the high country. I'm just so happy to be up here. I love Estes Park. Grew up here. I went to camp up here when I was a kid at what used to be Meadowdale Camp, which was pretty close to, I think, where you were at for a while. It's the place where there's that little sunken house, and we're always like, what happened to the house,
Yeah, right. I can only see the roof.
That's all you can see.
It's like a Wizard of Oz or something. Yeah.
So the B-roll I put up here, I don't know if Rudy will put that on here or not, but I'm sitting here driving with the the camera out the side window so I can get the sunken house. So we'll see if that works.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
So we want to do a show here first off to talk about some of the weird things that are happening in our state.
Yes.
Just to give people a little bit of background, we think Colorado is kind of a microcosm and almost a test area of what's taking place in the broader culture. For me, this starts politically with a documentary that I saw, I don't know, a dozen years ago that Michelle Malkin put out. This documentary was called The Rocky Mountain Heist. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
No.
So it talked about how there was, I forget what they call them, the Gang of Four or something like that. Jared Polis was one of them.
Yes.
And so 3 or 4 billionaires put in, they speculated $750 million into Colorado government, into the DNC.
Yeah.
And I highly suspect that went to Dominion machines and all kinds of voting fraud.
Yes.
And they document how Colorado and Virginia were 2 test states that they wanted to see if they could flip. Because if you remember back at the turn of the century, Colorado was probably the reddest state in the Union.
Totally.
I mean, we had Tabor laws and all this kind of stuff that that was in place specifically for almost a takeover. They haven't been able to undo that yet, but they've tried.
Yeah.
And ever since then, Colorado has done some really weird things. Us in Washington State were the two states that first tried to legalize marijuana, and then we did it.
Yep.
And what do you think that does to your voter group? All of a sudden, all these kinds of people come in, and it was all political. This is not about moral freedom or a libertarianism or something like that. This was a deliberate coup to flip the state and to get a bunch of, votes in Congress.
Well, and whenever, I'm a transplant, I'm from the Midwest. You grew up here, right? And so you've seen a lot more changes. But even since we moved back 6 years ago, the influx of the populace in the Front Range is staggering. I think during the COVID years, I read a stat that around 5,000 to 8,000 people a month were moving to the Front Range, Denver metro area, which is crazy. And when relocation happens, so does ideologies.
Absolutely, and especially when that most of that relocation is coming from the three western states of California, Oregon, and Washington.
We didn't get to choose.
Right. And so, they kind of destroy their state and they think that they can bring utopia to the next place.
That's right.
We had been predicting this for 40 years, that the Front Range from Fort Collins all the way down to Colorado Springs would be one giant metro area by 2020. And they weren't far off on that.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're not here to talk about the politics of that. I bring it up because in the last 8 years, we have had a governor that is the first openly avowed homosexual governor in the country. And there is some crazy, weird stuff that is in that governor's mansion. I have been told from the pastor at Flatirons Church, who's taken tours down there.
Yes.
Flatirons is kind of really the biggest mega church in Colorado.
Yep.
And this guy actually found Michael Heiser in the unseen realm and decided that he would start preaching through that, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And I went down there and met him and talked to him.
Okay.
And they're actually, Drana Heiser tells me that they're thinking about having a unseen realm conference down at that church come the end of this next year.
No way.
So it's something to keep in the back of your mind. But
yes,
he was telling me, and I have other friends that have told me some crazy stories surrounding supernatural things and the governor and the mansion and demonic paintings and things that are happening in rooms with politicians that are just like dark, creepy
like
stuff.
Mason level, but on maybe a whole different platform.
Absolutely. And so we started talking about Estes Park is kind of one of those ground areas, ground floor areas where this might be happening. And so a little bit later in this show, we're going to head over to the Stanley Hotel and just let you see, a little bit about that, tell you that story. But why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that you have in your mind that I've been thinking about for a long time about why Colorado is so strange, why we want to talk about it on these podcasts, because we're not just here to talk about strangeness.
Right.
But we're here to help people think about it from Christian perspective.
Yes.
And especially, from almost a solid grounding perspective.
Correct.
For us in our church, confessions of faith and just going back 500 years to the beginning of the Reformation, which is so badly missing in so much of kind of the blurry space.
Right.
That just people, they're so interested in these things, but it's like, where do you go to be able to find solid theological ways to think about them? I'm so happy, by the way, just one more side note before we get going. My buddies Newton Lake, Nate and Luke over at Blurry Creatures are starting a thing called Stranger Theology.
I did see
with
that.
Joel Matamale.
Yes.
And I'm going to be part of writing with that. And
excellent.
They're seeing the same things.
Oh, yeah.
That we need to have theological grounding to help people think about all, the things that the culture is talking about, that it's seeing. And Colorado is just exploding in so many strange supernatural ways. So I'll just let you take this kind of wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that kind of sparked my interest in pastoring my people through this whole idea of not just the supernatural, but the fact that over 87% of people, if asked, want to have a spiritual conversation. So it's not like we're living in some dry desert where no one wants to talk about spiritual things. I think, and I don't know if it's attributed to COVID or it's attributed to political unrest or whatever it may be, but there is a rise and a desire to talk about things that are spiritual.
Yeah.
And as I was thinking about this episode, I wanted to work through 4 or 5 real specific things that I've read about and seen in the Front Range that have to do with spiritual darkness. And I think it's important because, with my people up here and yours down in the valley, they have grandkids, they have kids, and they might be growing up or being in high school here or college. They're going to get exposed to this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in Colorado, to your point, talking about the Stanley, it's a lot more visible. Like it's becoming more acceptable to join a Wiccan club.
Yeah.
Or to have a seance party in your neighborhood. Like these are things I see on Facebook posts, invitations. And I think for a lot of people, their naivety drives them into it out of curiosity and fun and relationships and things like that. But they don't realize what's actually happening in the depth. So I want to give some examples.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go to our footage of the Stanley at this point in time and let people see just kind of what the hotel is. There's a couple things that we were talking about.
Yes.
And then we can come back and talk about that after that.
That would be great.
So, Adam, we're up here at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado.
Yep.
One of the most beautiful places I've been to in Colorado.
Yes.
Pretty much by far. It's fantastic.
Yes.
Lord Stanley built this thing in, I guess, 1909, something like that. And came up here because he had tuberculosis.
Yep.
And, a lot of guys actually came up here for tuberculosis. Doc Holliday came to Glenwood Springs and went up to the hot springs and actually has his a gravestone up there.
I think there's a museum there.
Yeah, there probably is. I've been to the grave, but I haven't been to the museum. So, the Wild West.
That's right.
But this place really became famous, this 140 room, just incredible hotel in the Stephen King book, The Shining.
Correct.
That they didn't actually ever film the movie here. Right. But I thought it was in the Mandela effect when I resaw the movie a couple years ago. I'm like, no, I know they filmed the movie here. This is like history's, the timeline's been changed, right? But I guess they didn't. So
no, and we didn't roll up in our Lamborghini like in Dumb and Dumber. So, today, walk up the stairs.
We should put our Dumb and Dumber clothes on, but we didn't. I'm wearing my Mr. Ballin shirt. Do you know who Mr. Ballin is? Oh, this is a guy. He podcaster, got 10 million of subscribers, and he tells stories of the strange, dark, and mysterious.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so, this is actually one of his shirts.
You're in a good setting, man.
So I thought this would be appropriate to wear.
Perfect.
But that was made famous by the Jack Nicholson movie and the Red Rum thing, and there was a recent sequel that came out with Ewan McGregor where they filmed the very end of that movie back at the equivalent to the Stanley Hotel. So this place has got all kinds of high strangeness, and you've lived up here for a while, and church up here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the recent history of the place?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things about Mr. Stanley is he actually, I believe he was one of the first business entities to actually bring elk from Montana to Estes Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they weren't native up here? Really?
No. Yeah. And there's multiple stories about his vehicles transporting elk from somewhere in Montana to this valley, because part of it is he wanted it to be a hunting reserve, Estes proper.
Of course, now you can't even touch them.
Right. Yeah, they're all over the place, and you hit them with golf balls if you're a golf fan. But what was intriguing for me with the Stanley is it's changed hands multiple times over the years. And a couple of years ago, the state of Colorado, in some capacity, was involved in purchasing the Stanley with some art conglomerates involved.
Yeah, we'll talk about more with that when we get back to the church, for sure.
Absolutely. But what I've noticed is they've started to do a little bit more supernatural.
Well,
events.
isn't there some sort of like $140 million building project, or maybe that's what they paid for the Stanley? I forget.
Yes.
But there's some sort of a huge building project that they're
which includes renovations, expansions. Like if you walk around the property, there's buildings here that weren't here 15 years ago.
So I think that it's like a Sunshine Film Festival thing.
Yes.
And then like a horror, like the genre.
Well, and they brought, I don't know if you remember Frozen Dead Guy days.
They did.
They brought that to the Stanley, I think a couple of years ago.
So I don't know if you know this, but the dude who used to take care of the Frozen Dead Guy is in my church.
Yes, you told me about that. That's a wild connection.
Frozen Dead Guy, dude, this is a guy who came from Europe and somehow ended up in Netherlands, and then he wanted his body frozen, kind of like the the Michael Jackson story or the Walt Disney story.
Yes,
where they wanted to put their body on ice right before or right after they died, so they can be revived someday. So the same thing, and this guy was in an ice house up in Netherlands, just up the road.
Yeah,
and so they had to literally bring in ice all the time, and this was this guy's job. And they moved him here just a year ago or something like that. Now he's on permanent cryo, and
that's right. That's wild, man. So we're going to be exploring some interesting things here at the Stanley, but also in the state of Colorado, in the Front Range, Denver metro area, the rise of kind of the New Age supernatural, which has always been around, but we've seen it grow. And I think it's intriguing as pastors and theologians to take a peek into it and explore it a little bit.
Absolutely. Let's go walk around the hotel, see what we can find.
Let's do it. All right.
Adam. So we walked up the stairs, and this is just a banner. It says 13 on it, the Theological Seance Experience, featuring resident apparitionist Hannibal. Tell us what in the world's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look up the definition of seance, it's basically an invitation to invite spiritual entities to engage with you and communicate with you. This is nothing new historically for humans to do this. We know in Scripture, the Bible talks about not diving into divination, necromancy. Well, this is kind of what it is now from Stanley's perspective. I think they're using it in more of a jokingly, kind of fun, theatrical manner. But this guy right here, Aidan Sinclair, has done a variety of other shows that I'll talk about once we're back at the church. But very interesting for sure.
Well, let's walk down this way. There's some folks coming. First of all, there's a ghost banner. Just kind of reinforcing what we were talking about a minute ago with these ghosts that are in this place. And then to kind of walk, you can see the carpeting. Feels like the kid rolling through on his big wheel or whatever.
That's right.
And you look for the number of the room, and it's just not here. So 238, 204. Although these are the even numbers, so maybe it is here. All right, we think we took a wrong direction. I'm hoping.
There's a portal in here.
Yeah, there's a portal. What do you got? Oh yeah, there you are. 237. It's like marked with the special thing.
Door plate. Yeah. Yes.
There it goes.
There it is.
And so this is like right where Nicholson takes the axe. And smashes through. Right there.
There it is.
So there you go, guys. We'll go downstairs and show you some more.
That's right.
All right, so we've walked up the second stairs here, and we're just laughing because we can't believe we're actually doing this. But we're at the stairwell, and I wanted to show people down the stairwell here. And I don't know if you know much of the story, but 9 News came up here, several years back, and they filmed. There was a picture that was taken of a ghost, shadowy ghost that was like walking down the stairs or something like that.
Yes.
And so this place has ghost stories. Do you know anything about that?
Well, and if you walk around, you'll see at the top of the stairs, there's banners with a ghost figure on it, I think portraying the story as a part of the tour.
No, okay.
Now, I've not done the tour in a while, But yeah, it's definitely a tourist attraction. Great lore here at the Stanley.
All right, so we're back after having taken this tour of the Stanley Hotel. And not a great tour, but a little bit of a tour. And let's start talking about this place. And
so when Doug and I met a few weeks ago and we were talking about what episodes we wanted to record, this was on my radar because I wanted to attend a concert at the Stanley over Thanksgiving from a band that I'd followed in the 90s when I was in high school. That's when I started playing music and drumming and wanted to be a touring musician. And so I was like, oh man, Face to Face is coming to the Stanley. They were a punk band. I want to go see them, relive my 17-year-old self.
That's
right?
funny. Lord Huron is like one of my favorite bands. And I couldn't believe they were up here at the Stanley and they were charging like $700 a ticket to go to that. And I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Wow.
But it would have been amazing.
It would have been awesome.
Them,
tickets were like $90. But as I was reading through the ticket information, it said on the bottom, and each show will have a invitation to a seance experience at the Stanley.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, what's that?
Well, I mean, we just saw some of those posters that have that very sort of thing going on. So is this something that you've seen a rise of, a change of at the Stanley over the course of the last couple of years?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think even bringing the Dead Guy Day festival to the Stanley was a big move. They do a fall kind of boo bash there, which includes some of these elements. So there seems to be an uptick in just promoting these events, and people want to go.
We didn't talk about this when we were over at the hotel, but do you know much about the Dead Guy Days that they held up in Netherlands? Because this was a festival that started, at some point in time after this crazy guy put himself on ice, and I don't know. I looked into this right after 2020. I'm like, it would be kind of fun to go up there. Yeah. And then I looked at their website and the things that are happening up there, and I'm like, I'm not taking my kids to that place.
No,
that is like evil.
Yeah, and it's connected to some of the things I'm gonna talk about.
Okay,
so I just want to walk you through what is this seance happening at the Stanley. I want to read some descript and then some other things that the gentleman who is kind of running these theatrical seances is doing elsewhere. And we'll kind of navigate through this. So what is it? According to their kind of descript, it's an intimate theatrical seance experience hosted by the historic Stanley Hotel that invites participate in a Victorian-style seance, and it's a very immersive experience.
So you can pay for this?
You can pay for it.
And then you can do an actual seance with this guy who leads it.
Yeah, and I think there's elements of it being very much theatrical.
Yeah, that's how they sell it.
But then it's turned into a personal invitation, right, to participate.
Well, it's like a Ouija board. You're going to buy the Ouija board in a game store.
Yeah.
And then you don't understand when you bring it home that something could actually happen.
Well, and I think historically, and maybe you have some insight on this too, Doug, is seances are designed to talk to the dead.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is you don't know what's on the other side. So there's a lot of I'm sure in the theatrical part, there's a lot of emotional stirring.
Right.
Like, I'd love to talk with my dead grandma.
Right.
Or my Uncle Billy. The problem is you don't know what's on the other side communicating to you. And so this guy does a variety of other shows. I'll just make a mention of a few of them, but one is called Voyages to the Other Side. It's an event that combines his Illusions of the Past show with a paranormal investigation of haunted areas. He does another one called Fate and Futility, a narrative theatrical experience exploring destiny and using fortune telling and illusions with mysterious artifacts. Which I was like, what kind of artifacts are we using?
Where are they getting these artifacts
from? Sounds
from?
like something in the Old Testament. And then he does one called Strange Gifts, right? A holiday-themed show performed during the Christmas season that uses illusion to bring back childhood memories. So I think some of these guys use, and I know in the clinical world, there's an increase in using hypnotism to heal parts of you or engage in parts of you. And I think this is where some of the danger lies as we think about biblical Christianity and being very careful what you stick your toes into.
So when you think about it from a biblical perspective, I'm of the opinion that a lot of Christians think that these laws in the books of Moses that forbid crossing over, they forbid necromancy, they forbid talking to the dead, they forbid witchcraft, that they just forbid it because it's silly.
Yes.
Which, when you just think for 3 seconds about it, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
It makes a lot more sense that they forbid it because it's something that God knows that if you engage in these practices, it's not something that you can trust. It's not something that's safe.
Yes.
And also, he has put humans here on this side.
Yeah.
And we have a veil. It can be a very dark veil, it can be a thick veil, or it can be a thin veil. And we're not supposed to cross that veil until we die.
No, and it seems like, I mean, you look at even Scripture, some of the most influential leaders wanted to tap into this, right? You think of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. Think of the Babylon Tower.
Becoming a giant,
yes.
like whatever that is.
Yes.
And
so it's these invitations to really invite what you don't know is actually going to happen. Now, I know they used different types of magic and rituals, but I don't see these things being too far off if you're not careful. And there seems to be a rise in people flocking to this stuff for identity, longing, purpose, things that we were made for as image bearers.
Right.
And unless we don't, if we don't expose people to this stuff, man, you can go in naive and it could be pretty dangerous for you long term.
I was talking to a friend at church a couple of weeks ago about AI and how they're using AI now to create pictures of your dead relatives and then to allow you to interact with your dead relatives.
I did see that.
And it's almost like
have
a form
conversation with
them.
them.
Yeah, it's like a form of necromancy that's filling the same exact kind of a void. Now, this isn't going to be a show on AI, but it's a very similar conceptual idea to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so some of the deeper roots come out of witchcraft, warlocks, wizardry.
Right.
And I want to move to this interesting one that I've researched a little bit in Denver. For 34 years, Denver has hosted what they call the Denver Witches Ball and Large Witchcraft Gathering. And it happens with this organization called Covenant of the River +1, and this is the descriptive of the event. We exist to promote community and spiritual growth. We welcome all positive and inclusive paths. Join Kadrick Olson, master of Norse mysticism and shadow work, for a transformative midnight ritual at Denver Witches Ball 2025. This is not a passive ritual, it's a living portal. Confront what no longer serves you, old wounds, toxic attachments, and lingering shadows that sabotage your path.
Dude, that reminds me, this will show you how old I am. Back in AOL days, they had chat rooms.
Yes.
This was kind of the first way that you could interact with people via the internet. And it was really, I remember the first time I typed to somebody and it typed back to me. And I was like, this is not right. It's just kind of a form of the telephone or the internet, but still I was like, there's something wrong with this. Well, we quickly got adapted to that. And my two favorite rooms that I would go in was a Calvinist room and a Wiccan room.
Oh, interesting.
And there was a Wiccan that was in El Dorado Springs, just to the south of Boulder. I never got to meet the guy, but really interesting fellow. And I just found these Wiccans just, I don't know what it was that drew me to them. I just felt like maybe it's the spirit of Boulder that I've always wanted to have an outreach to Boulder, and it's just so hard and it's so dark and it's such hard soil.
Yes.
And the Wiccans themselves, they were not open to the gospel at all, but there's a friendliness that you had to them.
Yes.
And that's one of the ways that I think that this kind of thing is so pernicious, because
yes, it's pernicious, and because we're growing up in eras of the nuns where, I'm an old millennial, but younger millennials and down to my kids' ages, alpha generation, a lot of those kids grew up with no church background at all. They didn't grow up Catholic or Lutheran or Episcopalian, none of that.
Especially in Colorado.
but they still are searching and wanting spiritual interaction because they're spiritual people.
Yeah.
So when these things are promoted as finding yourself, identifying with yourself, using language like, calling upon entities to comfort you, all of these things are very attractive to people with no gospel foundation. And I think it's real strategic by the evil one. I know it's strategic by those promoting these events. He goes on to say, during this ritual, you will release what drains you, reclaim forgotten strength, receive guidance from the gods, your ancestors, and your deepest self. You'll speak your sacred intention into the world, and Kedrick will invoke Hael, uses ruins to cast off binding energies and call upon Odin and Boulder to awaken the light within you.
Yeah.
By the time the minor closes, you'll leave with clarity, empowerment, and purpose.
And possession.
And possession. Yeah. Well, and that.
They don't bring that up,
but think about clarity, empowerment, and purpose. What do human beings long for? They long to belong, right? They want a trajectory. They want a vision for their lives. And so the evil one's very crafty in knowing how the human heart finds its affections and where it kind of is dragged into. And so that's one of the things that event seems to be growing.
Yeah.
Seems to be expanding, and they have it available for kids 10 and up, which is very, very interesting. I'll lead you to a different one that I think you'll find interesting that's been popping up in Colorado. I saw one in Fort Collins over the summer, and maybe you've seen them too, but it's titled Witch Wellness Markets. And they're promoted as pop-up events, and they market and have community events branded around witch wellness, which involves crystals, tarot cards, aura photography, all of those things. And the invitation from rhinoartdistrict.org says this: join us under the glow of the full moon for a night of healing, magic, and community. We're bringing together Black, Indigenous, BIPOC, and queer artists, healers, and vendors to celebrate the sacred, the spiritual, and the soulful. Live music and drag performances will be included, as well as food, art, and magic.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is as the sexual revolution increases, rebellion towards design, you're also integrating witchcraft into these things. They go hand in hand because they share a lot of the same values. You can create and be your own God, essentially. And it goes on to say, many occult or new age environments teach that a person can reinvent, reshape, or redefine their identity through ritual, energy work, spiritual communication, or esoteric practices, especially in spiritualized spaces. So it's just one of those other invitations into something where you don't know what's on the other side.
So growing up in the 80s especially, there was a huge New Age movement that was taking place. And what's interesting to me, I'd like your take on this, that this stuff has been around for a long time.
Oh, yes.
But now, I don't know if it's because I was just sheltered. I'm just in high school. I had my little smaller worldview. I don't know what it was, growing up in a Christian community. And, I still went to public school. And I would talk to a handful of people that may have dabbled with that kind of stuff. And you'd see goth kids and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was really confined. Like if you wanted to go, you could go to find a place like that, but you would go to Boulder.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Right.
And what's so interesting to me is we've talked here about Nederland. Now that's kind of Boulder. Estes Park's not kind of Boulder.
Yes.
Fort Collins is not Boulder. Denver's definitely not Boulder. And yet here we have the exact same stuff that was really confined to that 20 square miles surrounded by reality is what they used to call Boulder.
Yeah.
And now Boulder has spilled out into the entire Front Range. Yeah. And it's become normative.
It becomes normative. And I think it's attached. A lot of it is attached to the sexual spiritual rebellion we're seeing. Because when you go to these events, and even in their print media, you find drag shows, which is so interesting to me. Like, you go to a witchcraft festival, and there's going to be a drag show on Saturday at 4. It's like, interesting. But when you think of occultism, it's really based on this self kind of reintroducing or self-creation, identity as performance in the arts. And I think that's one of the marketing plays the evil one uses, is it's artistry. It's an artistic expression. And I think a lot of people are just blinded by that because they get value in community, in their identity, and they're deceived into thinking that this identity is a safe venue for them. But we laughed about it, but you walk away with entities and spirits potentially attached to you as a person. And we know that happens.
Yeah, my mind is going to the ancient world and the world of temple prostitution.
Yes.
And you would have all kinds of prostitution there. You would have homosexual male, you would have transsexual stuff, you would have, you name it, and that's taking place in the cult, in the actual worship centers.
Yes.
And it's like, well, why in the world is that? I think that there's something going on there between the second commandment and the sixth commandment, or the seventh commandment, between idolatry and adultery.
Yes.
That there's a spiritual connection between that adultery. If you think about the two tables of the law, the 10 commandments, you really have a vertical component, which are sins that we have against God. And then you have a horizontal component, which are sins that we have against each other.
Yes.
Right. And those sins against God, you're not to have any of the gods before me. And then the second commandment, the way that both of us would divide those commandments, the second commandment is that you're not to make an image of anything in heaven and earth and worship it. Right.
Yes.
And so that would be, there's idolatry in the second commandment, but then the first commandment, it's like, I've talked about this quite a bit on my show, that idolatry is not the worship of fake things or the worship of stones and sticks, or even the worship of, I suppose it could be the worship of a person that looks like that, but that's not the intent behind it. The intent is that you incant through ritual and magic something to come into the object whereby you can use it and then you give it worship.
Yes.
And that becomes the means by which you violate the first commandment. And I say that because those are real supernatural entities that especially if you're a Christian, you're in covenant with God. And when you then go to the idols or to the gods, you're actually breaking covenant. I'm preaching through Ezekiel right now. And this is what Ezekiel 16 is all about, violating the covenant through this adulterous relationship that you have. You can't commit adultery if there's not something that's actually there, right?
Right.
And so that's where that overlap. And I think that the sexual stuff that we're seeing and the explosion of it, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but there are theories out there, conspiracy theories, that Hugh Hefner was a CIA agent that started Playboy.
Interesting.
As one of many means of kind of defiling and debasing our civilization.
Yeah.
And then you think about how that has just, you can't even understand how much that has exploded through internet pornography and stuff like that.
Oh, totally.
And how this has changed the way one, two, maybe three generations of people are now thinking about these things.
Yeah. And what a lot of Christians don't realize, and specifically non-Christians, is we live in the kingdom of God, which is ordered by rule. Right? So when you engage in pornography, when you engage in tarot cards, when you engage in these things, you are inviting a legal contract to happen with entities that can have some sort of authority in your life. And I think Deuteronomy 22 talks about this idea of when a spiritual community celebrates the inversion of creation order, it naturally aligns with other anti-creational spiritualities. So like sins are bundled like grapes. So when you see witchcraft, you're going to see drag shows. Like, there's these sins that like to hang with each other because they share similar values of rejecting how God has made the world. And I think God knew that, instructing Israel in certain ways of operating, because there was communal sins and an impact on the nation itself. Dangerous stuff.
Very dangerous. And like we said, growing. Do you have more examples?
I do. I do.
Well, I just pile it on, I guess.
I know. We're going to go. I want to talk a little bit about, and we've seen these, in Colorado, just occult and New Age festivals. They've been around Colorado for a long time,
sure.
Different parts of the world. But I'll talk a little bit more about this idea of inviting and invoking spirits, because at any of these events, that's kind of the core rebellion. Even though they might, like the Stanley, they might view it as theatrical, or, at the Witchcraft booth at the farmer's market, it might be fun and you're playing with tarot cards, but you're invoking and inviting spirits. And a lot of these festivals or drag performers are not merely entertainers. They function, and they use this language: spiritual guides, mediums, embodied deities. So they themselves would put them into like a pantheon of gods within their system. Manifestations of goddess energy is another term you hear a lot. And then ritual callers. And it's just a part of all of the occult language in any of these events, festivals, celebrations, any of it. And, we know in 1 Samuel and John and Romans, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
Right.
Everyone who practices sin is a slave to it. So they're just bound into it. And
let's talk about that for a minute.
Yes.
Because I think this is a really important foundational thing that people need to understand about what it's not just when you're practicing it, but it goes even farther back than that. It goes to when you're born. Thinking about Ephesians 2:1 through 3, about how we're born dead in our trespasses and sin.
That's right.
And this language of slavery to sin is all over the New Testament. And it's not something that it's a choice that you make when you reach the age of accountability or something like that. It's that there is a kingdom of darkness that you're born into. This is one of the things that the divine counsel theology has really helped me understand.
Yes.
Is that we're not, it's kind of put a picture to original sin, I guess, for me, that you're not born neutral. You're not born in a neutral country. Like Switzerland's the only neutral country, right? Switzerland's not neutral.
Right.
All the people all the deep state puts their money in their banks. That's not neutral, right? So you have this picture that you're born under a kingdom of darkness that has a ruler. And however you want to think about Satan is kind of the overarching figure, but there can be lesser beings that are under that, I think. And we're born slaves to that.
Yes.
And then we, through choices that people make when they're already in the darkness, then they just go running after that, and they make it worse for themselves.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why guys like you and I know Dr. Michael Heiser, he would go to places like this and try to preach the gospel and penetrate hearts, because you're dealing with dead bones that need to be resurrected. And
the gospel is the only power that has the ability to transfer a person from one kingdom to the other kingdom.
Yeah.
By itself.
Let me share one more example that I've seen in Colorado, and these things pop up, but it's titled A Midnight Ritual, a Shamanic Journey. Okay. And it is the core practice of the shaman. It is rooted in ancient spiritual traditions. Individuals entered altered states of consciousness by drumming, chanting, and other rhythmic sounds, and sometimes psychoactive substances to seek guidance, healing, and insight from the spirit world. The practice is highly personal, sometimes characterized by vivid imagery, symbols, and sensations, but also It provides a all-knowing experience. It emphasizes intuition and the behalf that the individuals are able to access these deeper layers of consciousness. There is divine intelligence, which I mentioned earlier, all around us, and the shamanic journey is a direct connection for insight into what the universe has to offer for our support, if we dare to seek the truth. Join us in the main ballroom to honor our magical roots and connect with the divine during this sacred time of year. And they use the Halloween, new moon time of year, Christmas, Advent time of year. It's very seasonal, and it happens throughout the Front Range at different places in different spaces. And so same type of thing we've been talking about. All of these things kind of mention the same journey. The midnight ritual was led by a lady named Sarah Rain and a motley band of pagan sistren, brethren and otheren from along the Front Range. In this season, when the veil between the worlds is thin, talking about during that fall new moon, we look for messages, guidance, and insight from unseen realms. Divination through many forms helps us recognize the deep wisdom available to us. Join the circle of friends and seekers. Let's divine the divine. So that's the marketing ploy. That's the push. But to your point, if you're dead in your sins, this seems just like something that is engaging and relational, and there's fellowship there. But what people don't realize, it's very religious. There's preaching, right? There's worship. There's a priestess, according to this. There's sacraments. Yep. There's
music.
Yep. And it's quite dangerous, and it's growing.
Yeah.
And it's growing. So these are just things, that as we think about celebrating witchcraft as identity or spirituality, it's not just fringy anymore.
That's exactly the thing. And, that's one of the reasons for doing a Reformed Fringe podcast, is that it might be fringy in my little circles of people who are not reading outside of their own little boxes, and they're not engaging with non-Christian people, or, maybe they're just living in the Midwest or something like that, where maybe it's not as bad, but I'm telling you, it's spreading there too.
Yes.
Maybe not quite to the degree that we have it here in Colorado. I mean, this place has been weird for a long time.
Oh yeah.
We can go back. We could do a show. There
Boulder
have
Canyon.
been many shows done on DIA, the weirdness of that. There's a guy that I read a long time ago named Christopher O'Brien, who wrote a series of books on the mysterious valley, the Alamosa Valley, down southern Colorado, and how this is a place of UFOs, Bigfoots. If you go around to some of the cities that are kind of in the outskirts of the valley, like Westcliff, Silvercliff, where some of my ancestors came from, it's like cult haven down there.
Oh.
I mean, it's Boulder on steroids.
Yeah.
And there's compounds down there. You name a cult, it exists down there.
Right.
And then you've got all these, black ops from these dark military, groups that just super wild stuff.
That's right.
It's like, it's our entire state.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. And you sent me to a podcast that my buddy Tony Merkel does for the Confessionals.
Yes.
Where he interviewed a fellow here from Colorado.
Yes.
His name is Nathan Reynolds.
Yes. That story's wild, because he came out of the occult bloodline stuff.
The full bloodline stuff. The Nephilim stuff. He actually starts off that show and says, I want you to know there's hope for Nephilim.
Well, he went to see you, Boulder.
He did.
That whole series was fascinating to me, just because I live here. And it's like, oh, he's got a lot to say about demonic presence in the Front Range.
Yeah.
And he was real specific about talking about it. He didn't shy away from it. I think he's not living here in the state anymore, but that makes perfect sense to me.
He was talking about Colorado Springs a little bit, and Colorado Springs gained this reputation when Focus on the Family moved down there. And at one point in time, I forget there was something like 70 different Christian parachurch organizations in the Springs. But you just go right up the mountain, interestingly, on the way to Pikes Peak,
Yes.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe we want to do a show on kind of the cosmic mountain. I think it would be very interesting and along the lines of this, because Pikes Peak, Long's Peak, you're literally in the shadow of Long's Peak, just
right
5-minute drive, and you'll get to
why it's so windy.
Yeah, well, it's also why it's so weird, man. Like these mountains are something, and he was talking about how Manitou, it's Boulder, it's a small version of Boulder is all it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I spent time living in Durango, Silverton area. A lot of interesting folklore there as well. But I want to leave us with this idea and us to think about the fact that these movements, whether you call them, diving into Wicca, witchcraft, wizardry, any of this, they're very much anti-creation, anti-God. They're wanting to reinvent themselves. You'll see them blatantly use terminology like anti-Christian, anti-patriarchal, anti-biblical, breaking free from religious trauma. So they suck a lot of hurt Christians into this for healing, which is really dangerous, rejecting biblical moralism, and they would love to deconstruct Christianity as a whole. And so whether it's the sexual revolution, the weird stuff we're seeing in Colorado, it is, at the end of the day, a complete stiff arm towards the creational order that God has made. And we want to pay attention to that and encourage our people to pay attention to it as well.
Yeah. Maybe I'll finish the show with telling you a story that you probably won't know. And it's hopefully a story of hope. In the midst of all this. So like I said, Boulder's been weird for a very long time. It was, if you ask the locals who've lived there for a long time, they'll tell you it was probably in the 60s that it started changing. It was a pretty conservative place before that.
Yeah.
But then people started moving there like they do to some of these other places like Mount Shasta or Manitou or, what's the place down in Arizona that they all go to that's so weird? People will know what I'm talking about, but
oh yes, Sedona.
Yeah, Sedona. Yeah, those
Crystal
kinds of
shops on every corner.
So, this is a story of the Mall Crawl. Now, the Mall Crawl was a Halloween festival that took place in Boulder, and it got to the point where there was 80,000 people that would descend upon Boulder, and it was debauched. It was like the Netherlands dead guy days on absolute steroids.
Wow.
And it got to the point where they actually had to shut down 36 coming into Boulder and going up into Longmont. They had to shut the whole town down because it was out of control and there was nothing that they could do about it.
Really?
So the church that we're currently renting from, I used to go to that church when I was a kid. And this was probably around the time that I graduated high school. So I wasn't here when it happened, but I've been told the story that there was and this doesn't really necessarily fit my Reformed sensibilities of how you should go about doing missions, but there was a missionary who came to Boulder from Africa.
Wow.
Dark black guy.
Just called Boulder.
Called to Boulder. Like I don't even think that the guy was sent.
Wow.
He was just called to Boulder. And he gets into town. And he immediately goes to all the churches in town that he could find that were Christian churches. And he said, I'm going to put together a coalition. We're going to stop the Mall Crawl. And we're going to just pray over the city.
Yeah.
He does that. And, at that point in time, there were still a few churches that were decent in Boulder. Now there's maybe a handful. And he got them together. They started praying. And the next year, the Mall Crawl went down to like 4,000 people.
Wow.
And the next year, it was gone and never came back.
Wow.
As Gollum would say, never come back, right? Never came back. And it was the power of prayer. Now, here's a simultaneous thing that happened in Boulder that I have wondered about my entire life. Right after that, or at the same time, Coach McCartney, who had come to Boulder to be the coach for the football team, had now been there for 3 or 4 years and had actually developed a pretty good team.
Right.
And so this is probably, I'm definitely in college, 91, 92. We went to the national championship, lost it to Notre Dame. And then the next year, we went back and won the national championship against Notre Dame.
Yes.
And what's so wild about that story is a couple of things. So first of all, it's in the backdrop of the mall crawl. And second of all, that season, we had the most inexplicable play in college football history. We were at the University of Missouri playing them in a football game, and we had a 5th down that nobody in the stadium, the referees, the people on the other team, the coaches on the other team, our team, nobody knew that it was a 5th down. And we scored a touchdown on the 5th down, and we won the game. If we had not have won that game, we would have never gone into the national championship.
Yes.
If we had not gone to the national championship and won, Coach McCartney would have not had the name that he then developed because of that. And immediately at that same time, he started a group called Promise Keepers.
And the first event was at Folsom,
and the
right?
first event, well, no, the first event was actually in the basketball stadium.
Okay.
And it had, 800 people. Then it went to 2,000. And then it moved to the stadium. And I was at the first football stadium event where it was 22,000.
Wow.
And I can remember, and again, this is not my Reformed sensibilities. I don't know that I would do things this way, but I'm telling you, God used this thing. And I will never forget when we went to lunch and you get 25,000 people having to stand in these narrow lines that lined up for a mile to get their food. And we started singing hymns.
Interesting.
Holy, holy, holy.
Yeah.
And you could hear holy, holy, holy echoing as you were done because of the way sound works.
Yeah.
People in front of you were behind you.
Right.
And you could hear this thing echoing.
That's crazy.
Next year, Folsom sells out. And then the next year, Promise Keepers goes kind of nationwide.
Yeah.
And it was a movement to, encourage men to be fathers and that kind of stuff. And Boulder hated that with every fiber of their being. And there was nothing that they could do to stop that.
No.
And I just say that because there is hope in the midst of the darkness.
Yes.
If the church will actually believe that it has a power that is greater than the supernatural powers that we're talking about in this particular episode.
Yeah, and to have confidence that the Bible's still alive and active and can change hearts, resurrect dead people.
Bring them back from the dead.
Yes.
And transfer them out of a kingdom of darkness into a kingdom of light. And when they see that light and they look back, man, we've had for our little Reformed church, we had maybe 2 adult baptisms up until 3 years ago for 20 years. We have had over a dozen in the last 2 years of people converting out of this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it's been so interesting to talk to them about what has caused them to come out of it. And, they're all kind of like, well, it was just God. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He certainly used COVID. He certainly has used some of these podcasts that people are talking about.
Some of the Charlie Kirk stuff. Yeah.
He's using all kinds of things. And when they look back on what they were into, they're like, how could I not see?
Yes.
And the reason is because they were literally in another kingdom under the power of another.
Blinded.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for journeying with me on this. I'm sure there's a lot more interesting parts of Colorado that, as we dive deeper into this, we'll find out. But we serve a king that's alive and active, and thank the Lord for that.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell people about your church a little bit? I mean, somebody might hear this and be like, actually, I know people will hear this because they will come right up to the gateway.
That's right.
And they'll be like, I heard there's a church that I should go to in Estes Park that's a good church.
Yeah. So I pastor a church in Estes Park, an E-Free church called Rocky Mountain E-Free Church. We've been here for over 28 years, kind of serving the Estes Valley. And we're a Bible-centered preaching church. I love preaching expository messages just like yourself. And we want to invite people to experience the Word for that very reason, to be changed into a new creation. And we don't apologize for it. We love what we do, and we feel called to it. So
it's awesome. And I think when I drove into the road up here, that this road that your church is on actually takes you to the park.
Yeah, you can hop on Highway 7, which will take you either to Wild Basin entrance, which is one of my favorite places, or Mary's Lake will loop back to Highway 36, which will take you into the main entrance. So we're pretty close.
Yeah, so my point is that people, when they're coming up to the park in the summertime especially, like, you're right here and this church is right here, so come and visit them.
We'd love to have you.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Fringe. If you like the show, guys, like it, subscribe, tell other people about it. And this was a fun one to do because hopefully Rudy will put a bunch of that B-roll in at the beginning. We might even be able to get a little bit of that shining music that I was listening to on the way up here to, open it up. So it's been a fun one. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.